Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Joan Ifland here. I am just so delighted to be with you. This is Food Addiction Reset TV, and the program is Hidden in Plain Sight Food Addiction. And tonight, we are going to do what we always do. We give you information that will save your life. So we know that processed food addiction is rampant in our culture. Most people don't know they have it. But if you are here, it's because you know or you think that you might have it and you want to learn more. So you are in exactly the right place. I am the editor and lead writer for this textbook, which a dear friend of mine called the Encyclopedia of Processed Food Addiction. It came out in January of this year, and the reviews have been just fantastic. People know that it's a disease now. There are 2,000 citations in that book, and health professionals are recognizing that this is a real disease. We've had discussions this week with people who develop curriculum for medical professionals, for doctors, for medical students, for residents, and they are excited and they want to move forward to write educational materials for health professionals. Yay! We have finally arrived, or we are arriving. And soon when you go to your health professional, they will know that you are suffering. You're suffering from a really terrible disease. So thank you to everybody who worked on that textbook with me, from my co-editors, Dr. Harry Preuss and Dr. Marianne Marcus. But now we know. Now we know. And now the world is learning. But what are we doing about that here at Food Addiction Reset TV? On this program, we are continuing to review media. We have 4 stories from the New York Times tonight. I think the New York Times is a very respected media outlet, and yet we have to fill in the blanks for them. They're trying to bring us information about processed foods, but of course, they're beholden to the processed food industry. So we're going to set the record straight and give you lots of help in your battle with processed foods. We're going to start out with a story from a research project in Germany that really clarifies the role of the food industry in deceiving parents. So parents obviously want to do the best for their children, but they are up against the processed food industry. So our first story right off the bat is going to help parents understand what the food industry is doing to their children, and we are going to help you protect your children. The next story we have is about pharmaceuticals. I think that most people are beginning to catch on that pharmaceuticals are not the answer to a lifestyle problem. Pharmaceuticals are not the answer to the behavior of the processed food industry in working so hard to addict us. So we are going to reveal yet another problem with pharmaceuticals and to encourage everyone to find health professionals who understand how to support us as we make lifestyle changes and we pull away from processed foods. So this is essential for us. So especially those of you who are taking a heart medication, or if you know someone who's taking a heart medication, please stay tuned and get this very valuable information. Now, our tip for tonight, our insider tip, the tip that will help you possibly just protect yourself better from this very aggressive commercial environment that we live in. So do stay tuned for our insider tip. It is about how to stand up for yourself, particularly with processed food pushers. So we all know people who just want us desperately to eat processed foods with them. And we do want to stay friends with them. We don't want to abandon them or cut them off. So we'll be talking about 6 suggestions for how to stand up to a processed food pusher. This could literally save your life. We have to know how to deal with people who want to eat processed foods with us. So stay tuned for that. And then we are going to talk about a very, just a really misstated conclusion to a very important article having to do with cirrhosis of the liver and the very sad development that young people in the United States are dying from cirrhosis of the liver, which used to be a disease that you saw in advanced alcoholism. And we are going to set the New York Times straight about their conclusions for what is causing cirrhosis of the liver and why young people are dying from it. So do stay tuned. I'm so glad you're here. We are going to start out with our story about sugar in children's food products. So this was a very interesting study that was done in Germany. The German researchers asked parents to estimate how much sugar was in the products that they're giving their children. So two astonishing and really revealing findings came out of this study. The first one was just, I know you're going to understand this. The first one was that if the product was presented as being healthy, the parent would way underestimate the amount of sugar in it. And two specific examples mentioned in the article were yogurt and juice. So when we talk about deceptive products for children, yogurt and juice are right at the top of the list. So sometimes yogurt can contain more sugar than ice cream. But the food industry has been successful at positioning that product as a health product. So people just don't expect to be lied to. Don't expect that if you are buying a product that's labeled as healthy, that it would addict your children, that it would cause learning disabilities and behavior problems, and that it would rearrange the firing patterns in the brain such that the child was craving all the time. Of course, a craving child is a profitable child to the food industry. So they're going to take these healthy products, load them up with addictive substances like sugar, and then sell them as healthy. So that was just a stunning example of how successful the processed food industry has been at deceiving parents. And juice, we know, is just liquid sugar. Once you have taken out the fiber, and that juice has to be heated to a very high temperature in order to sterilize it, to put it into containers, you have a highly adulterated product that is going to act on the body like high fructose corn syrup. Whether there are added sweeteners or not, you have now reduced that plant to a syrup, and that's just addictive. So that was a very good illustration of how the food industry persuades parents that very sugary products are healthy. Well, we know better, don't we? We know better. Though we don't buy those products for our children. We also know that a wonderful German researcher, Bodo Melnick, has discovered that dairy activates cancer genes and weight gain genes, so we wouldn't give our children dairy either. So that was just a great article. Now, here's the second finding. Here's the second finding that is so interesting. So they found that parents of obese children way underestimated the amount of sugar in products as opposed to parents of lean children. So what does this suggest? It suggests that the food industry is actually successful at creating obesity in children. We know the sugar is related to obesity, and we just see that poor parent who is really trying to do the best for their child is the parent that is more deluded less aware of how much sugar are in these products that are marketed to children. So I'm very grateful to the New York Times for reporting on this study. And I'm very, very grateful to the German researchers who thought of this method for showing that, showing the tragic effectiveness of deceiving parents about the amount of sugar in their products. So everybody, please, don't buy those. Of course, don't buy juice and don't buy yogurt. But tell other people that you're not buying those products for your children anymore, and tell them that they're just highly deceptive products. Don't you wish everybody knew that some of those about these highly deceptive products? And I would be so grateful to you. All right, let's take a quick station break. This is Food Addiction Reset TV. I am Dr. Joan Ifland. I am the editor of this textbook. Let's get the right one up here. Here we go. And I'm just very grateful to be here. The program is Hidden in Plain Sight, Food Addiction, and we are talking about how media covers up food addiction, how to read media to protect yourself and your family. So I'm just super glad that you're here. Let's talk about, our next topic is about pharmaceuticals. So we know how this works, right? In this community of recovering food addicts, we know that the problem with health in this country comes from processed foods. Why do we know that? And because we see, for example, in the Addiction Reset community, our online recovery community, when people get off the processed foods, they gradually work with their doctor or their prescribing health professional. Gradually, they don't need medications. So we see this all the time. People come in with many, many medications. Doctors are trained to prescribe medications. So it doesn't make any difference how many medications you're already on. If you go to a new doctor for a new problem, that professional often only has the option to write out another prescription, and they could lose their license if they don't. So what are we to do as consumers? Well, we get into communities like the Addiction Reset community at foodaddictionreset.com. We go to those places and we learn to change our lifestyle. So what do we do? Of course, we get off the processed foods and we learn. We learn how to protect ourselves from food stimulation that drives us into overwhelming cravings and actually goes over and turns off our braking system in our frontal lobe. I don't know if most people know that a craving can be so powerful. I don't know if you've ever had that whoosh feeling where you just know you're going to go grab something. Well, that's because that whoosh feeling is a craving that has gone up to the frontal lobe and literally turned it off. All the resources in the brain go into this powerful craving and nothing is left for your braking system. It's not your fault. The food industry does that very deliberately. So over time, losing control over processed foods, gradually, we become sicker and sicker. Every cell in the body is struggling, and things begin to fail. So we go to the doctor, and the doctor gives us a prescription, which some people think just masks the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. Okay, so this week, the New York Times reported on yet another reason why pharmaceuticals are not a great solution compared to a lifestyle change. So if you can do something with your food and stress and screens such that now you're eating clean and you're exercising, and most importantly, you're among healthy people like the Addiction Reset community, then your doctor will just happily start taking you off those medications. So doctors are sometimes shocked that somebody comes through their door and they're able to get off medications. We're not shocked. We've seen it over and over again. But doctors are happy to be that kind of shocked, and they're happy to take their patients off of medications. So one reason, of course, that we are very wary about medications is that often the data, the research that proved to the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, that the drug is effective and safe. They have to prove that the drug is effective and safe before the Food and Drug Administration will let them introduce it to the market. So often we are now finding afterwards that the pharmaceutical companies have distorted data, or they have not reported accurately on side effects. So we know those problems. The big example of this for our community was fen-phen. So that was a weight loss drug. We know that it caused problems with memory, and we know way too late that it caused problems with heart disease in the women who were taking it, and it was pulled from the market. So this is something that people just don't really think through, or maybe they're under pressure from a prescribing health professional that if they take a medication, there are going to be very severe side effects. And sometimes people have said to me, the side effects were worse than the original health problem. Okay, so lots of reasons to really fight for our recovery so that we don't end up taking pharmaceuticals. But the New York Times reported on yet another reason. This was about a heart medication called Valsartan, and a whole batch of it was manufactured erroneously with a substance that is known to cause cancer. So now we have quality control issues in our pharmaceuticals. And this is just another reason to fight the good fight, to get off of processed foods, to get into a healthy community, and just work with your doctor to get off your pharmaceuticals and to avoid having to take new pharmaceuticals. So I cannot emphasize that enough. We are working as hard as we can to get training materials into the hands of doctors and health professionals that will allow them to say, I could prescribe a pharmaceutical, but I would rather help you make lifestyle changes. So, gosh, wouldn't that be incredible if we could go into a health professional's office and get that message? I'm here to help you. I'm here to talk about how do we break down these lifestyle changes into really small steps? How do we celebrate these small steps? What do you like to do? What kinds of activities do you like to engage in? And let me just prescribe some of those activities. So doctors, they don't do that today, but oh my goodness, we're working so hard to make that a reality. In the meanwhile, come into the Addiction Reset community. It's at www.foodaddictionreset, and find a community of people who will do exactly that. Break down these lifestyle changes into very small steps. Give you tons and tons of time, as much time as you need to actually take those small steps. And then figure out with you what would be the easiest next step. Because there are lots of different ways to go in a lifestyle change. And they're all fun. Frankly, they're all fun. So it turns out that fun things calm the brain. A calm brain can think through an addictive urge and resist it. So it's just possible now. It's possible. By going to www.foodaddictionreset.com and clicking on the Addiction Reset community, you will be shocked. that you can join this community, that I am involved in. I show up for 2 video chats per day and a conference call per day. So you have all the support that you need. We are finding that food addiction is a very serious condition and that we do need that level of support some days. Some days we need to go to both video meetups and the conference call, and that's what keeps us sane. So I'm just so glad that I have the opportunity to be with you and talk about pharmaceuticals. The dangers are that the consequences are not known. Sometimes they're prescribed inappropriately. Like, we know the antidepressant medications were never meant to be prescribed year after year after year. They were just a short-term, couple of months Band-Aid. And yet now we find people who've been on them for a couple of years are having a very hard time getting off. So either the pharmaceutical is not being prescribed, or the data didn't pay enough attention to the side effects, or now we see in the New York Times that there are quality control issues. So do investigate all alternatives. When your doctor says, oh, your blood sugar numbers or your blood pressure numbers or your cholesterol numbers are off and I want to put you on a medication, in that moment, just really say to yourself, I am going to investigate support for a lifestyle change rather than risk my health on this pharmaceutical. Now, we care about you so much. And I know a lot of the things we say in here are new to you. But just give yourself a lot of time. You can reach me at Facebook. You can send me a friend request. There's only 2 Dr. Iflands, or there's only 2 Joan Iflands, and I'm the one, I think I'm still listed in Houston. But you're welcome to send me a private message and I will respond. You can also email me at foodaddictionreset@gmail.com. And we monitor those emails, and we just want to help you in any way we can. Sometimes people write to me and they just ask, what should I do next? And I can think through with them. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a doctor of nutrition and addictions. And I can work, but I can figure out, you could try this, you could try that, or you could try the other thing. And I'm so willing to do that with you. My goal, I only have one goal in life, and that is to help the food addict who still suffers. So keep trying. Write to me. Join the Facebook group, Food Addiction Education, and get great tips on insights and things to think about, discussion topics. Those are very active places where you will be embraced. I will put my arm around your virtual shoulders and console you and commiserate with you. I will be compassionate towards you because you have been given just a raw deal. Between the food industry and the pharmaceutical industry, they have just been tragically effective at making us sick and turning us into profit centers, craving profit centers. So I am so just deeply committed to connecting with you and helping you out of these very gray, shadowy places that we end up in. All right, let's do another station break. This is Food Addiction Reset TV. I am Dr. Joan Ifland. The program is Hidden in Plain Sight, Food Addiction, and we are uncovering food addiction right, left, and center. I do want to spend a minute here talking about a book that I wrote for you. This is the Food Addict's Meal Prep Manual. I wrote this book after posting out at Facebook about asking people, what are your barriers? I'm always interested in listening. I have questions. I want to know, what are your barriers to undertaking a clean food plan? And so many people responded, cooking. So I said, oh my goodness, the cooking is the easy part. You can make all of your food in 2 hours while you've got dance music on in the kitchen, or while you're listening to a past episode of Food Addiction Reset TV. And you can just load up your oven with proteins and starches, baked proteins and baked starches, and you can fill up the top of your stove with pots of great food, rice and beans and steamed vegetables. So when you do that, and then you fill up your crock pot, you have all your food, all your proteins and your starches, and a lot of your vegetables. They're all finished. And all you're doing all week is pulling them out of the freezer or out of the refrigerator, cutting them up, weighing them, and putting them in a food container. So this book is for you. It's for anyone who thinks that they can't eat clean because they don't know how to cook. And over the years, so many people have come back to me and said, wow, the food is so simple. The food is so simple. The food is the easy part. So treat yourself to finding out that it is easy. And if you get stuck in that cookbook and you can't figure out the next thing to do, just email me, foodaddictionreset@gmail.com, or find me out on Facebook at Food Addiction Education. I am so happy to work with you. Now, this is a great segue into our next segment, which is how to stand up for yourself. So great, you have your food, great, you've made all your food, and then you come to find out that the problem is not the food. The food is actually pretty easy to organize. And as somebody said to me today, it's very easy to find clean food in restaurants. You can always find a chicken breast or rice and beans or a fish fillet, and you can always find rice and beans for a starch, or in a pinch, you can use a baked potato. I know a lot of restaurants now are offering sweet potatoes, plain. So it's not even difficult to order in a restaurant, really. And if you can't find the starch, you know what I do is I carry a half cup of raw, rolled, gluten-free oats, gluten-free rolled oats. Half cup is the serving size. And if I can't find the starch in a restaurant, I can just eat that right out of the bag. Okay, there's my secret there. So what is the problem? You've got your food solved, and you're just so excited that you're going to walk away from this processed food addiction mess, and you get to your workplace, or you get to your faith organization, or you get to your kids' school, or you get to a meeting, or you get to your book club, and there's a pusher. So not only are there processed foods there that are very provocative, and we do know from the research that just being in the presence of a processed food is enough to provoke release of craving chemicals, no matter what your training is, no matter how hard you're working your program. Being in the presence of a processed food will start to kick up those cravings. And it will also erode attention span. So there's this great research done in Australia where the researchers have the study person sitting in front of a computer, and then they set a processed food over here. And suddenly the person cannot concentrate on the computer. They're looking over that processed food. They're looking over that processed food. Their eyes are moving over to the processed food, and they're not focused on their task. So just being in the presence of processed food is a craving trigger. And I just wish everybody knew that. Everybody who beats themselves up for lapses, I wish they knew. Having processed foods in your house is not a fair fight. You know, it's just going to be stimulating the release of those craving chemicals. So when you know what to do, when you know what, we can't keep processed foods in our house. And then you know how to talk to your family members about it, then you have a chance. So that's what we're doing in the Addiction Reset community, is we are giving people a chance. We're giving them the information, the guidelines, the suggestions, the small steps that can actually get them to a place of safety. So the New York Times published just a great article. You know, I chew them up all the time, but this was excellent. I loved this article. And the article was just about how to stand up for yourself. Now, we don't want to lose our relationships. For heaven's sakes, you know, we're in this state of great change. We want as little change as necessary. So just because we have stopped eating processed foods, you know, we don't want to lose our relationships with people who eat processed foods, because it's almost everybody else out there. We have co-workers. We have people we know at our faith organizations. We have the parents of our children's friends, and we want to maintain relationships with them. But we don't want them to push processed foods at us. No, that's dangerous for us. So I wanted to really feature this article as our insider tip for the week. The skill set of being able to turn off a pusher could mean life or death for us. So this is a crucial skill set. What do we do to turn off? Not just offend. I mean, just like click them off, like switch them off. A food pusher. So here's what they suggest. These are 6 tips. And I thought these were all straight on. So the first one is to be brief. Brief. Yes, and there's a really good reason to be brief when you're saying no. No, thank you. It's because we don't want to dwell on the food. We don't want to dwell on the situation, because just talking about processed foods, just having somebody standing there with something ooey gooey, that is kicking up our craving pathways. So we want to get in, say no, and get out. So being brief is really smart. You can say no, thank you, and oh, I have to go. You can just leave the scene. Gosh, okay, I have to go. Now, the next one was being gracious. So how do we be gracious when somebody is holding out something that could really hurt us? Well, we remind the person how much we like them, the person. That is so dear of you to bring that to me. You are such a wonderful person. Oh my goodness, I value our friendship, and I have to go now. You know, so being gracious, being complimentary, just being nice, being kind. So we don't have to be rude, but now we know we can be brief and we can be kind, and then we can get out of there. Okay, the next one is using I statements. So instead of you don't understand, I can't eat that. Or why did you make that for me? That would really make me sick. We make I statements. Oh, I have learned that I have a broad range of allergies, and that would really make me sick. So I am so grateful to you for thinking of me. And I will think of something else that we can do together. So I statements. It's about me. It's about my food allergies. It's about my health. So just no accusatory statements. You know, nothing like, you idiot, what were you thinking? No. So just I statements. That's the third tip, which I just thought was so good. Now, stalling. So stalling is, I'll get back to you on that. I'll get back to you on that. Or just like you get that invitation to somebody's birthday party and you say, I don't know if I can come, so I'm just stalling. And then on the day of, like long before the birthday party, You have a lovely card that you take back to the birthday person and you say, oh, happy birthday. I think about you all the time. And I made this card just for you, and enjoy yourself. And I won't be able to come to the celebration. So stalling, that's another good one. Now, two really good suggestions are to think about what your response is going to be beforehand. So if you know that person is going to bring something to you, like that person, you get out of going to lunch with that person, but they're going to bring you back something, just be prepared. Just like say, what is my response going to be? Oh, my response is going to be, oh, you probably forgot. Or maybe I forgot to tell you, that's a better one. I forgot to tell you that I have discovered I'm allergic to these things. And that is actually the cause of health problems for me. So rehearse it, say it out loud. And then the last one is very similar. It says acting out the no beforehand. So you think through what you're going to say. And then, as you're driving to work that morning, say it out loud, rehearse it. Oh, my dear friend, how thoughtful of you. However, I have learned that I am allergic. So you just say it out loud and then divert. So that's another good, I think that's probably under the stalling category, you divert. So you say, oh my goodness, I love your dress. Where did you get that? That looks so good on you. Or I've been meaning to ask you about your family member. Didn't you tell me your family member had to go to the doctor? And people love to talk about what's going on in their own lives. So divert, that's kind of a stalling, it's a diversionary tactic. But asking the person something about their personal life or a compliment, like, oh gosh, that report that you turned in was so good. And I'm so grateful to you for that very fine work. Boom, they'll forget about the processed food in their hand and talk about themselves. So that is just, it's another skill set, but it's a crucial skill set because people are going to be coming at us with processed foods for the rest of our lives. I can remember very early on when I announced to my circle that I was now in this field, and my popular book came out, which is now out of date, so I don't want to mention it. So it was a big deal. It was doing well, and all my friends knew about it. And lo and behold, the holidays came, and I got a shipment from a pretty darn good friend of a highly toxic processed food. I just opened that box, and I couldn't believe my eyes. And of course, there was in my household. Well, you can imagine that got soapy water poured on it just right away and in the trash. But people don't get it. And they're not being malicious. They're just being a normal person in this food addicted culture that we live in. So yes, be kind and then send them some healing thoughts. That's not exactly on the New York Times list, but it's something that I do. I will just hold them in my thoughts. I will surround them with light, and I will just say, oh, please, so-and-so, my dear friend, please find out about processed foods. I care about you, and I want you to be safe too. So that's, I personally think that's very powerful. And it's also very, very positive. So one thing we are learning in the food addiction reset community is how to build up positive capabilities in our brain and diminish the negative capabilities. So we're using a very sophisticated approach in there where we dwell on positive thoughts. So that is another reason not to stay in this negative place. Somebody has brought you something, they've provoked you. They know it was your quote unquote favorite thing, which means it was the most addictive substance for you, but they didn't mean it. So you want to zip right out of those negative thoughts about that person. Oh, why did they do that? Oh, they know better. Oh, they're just trying to sabotage me. Oh, how could they do that? No, don't dwell over there. That's a negative place, and you're building up negative thoughts in your head. So you're giving those negative neurons a lot of airspace in your head, and you don't want to do that. You want to zip over to some positive thoughts. Just start thinking about things that you're grateful for in that person, and that is great thought control. It's an insider tip for how to maintain recovery, because positive thinking is the opposite of addiction. Addictions always slide in when we're in a negative place, when we're mad at ourselves, when we're depressed, when we're ashamed of ourselves, when we're anxious. Boy, that addiction comes right in there. So go to a positive place right away. When you've had one of those encounters with a food pusher, just go to a positive place in your brain. Start ticking off things that you like about that person. Okay, so there are some really good life-saving tips there. Okay, one last station break. This is Food Addiction Reset TV. I so want to acknowledge Sheila Yount, our producer. I'm sure you're noticing in this show that we are always thinking about how to reach you and help you. And so Sheila has worked on these. They're on top of what I'm talking about. They're words off to the side of the show so that you can be hearing and reading at the same time. And I'm just so grateful to Sheila for doing that. You just can't imagine. Whenever we here at Food Addiction Reset take a step forward to reaching you, to giving you the information and the inside tips that you need to protect yourself and your family, I really get excited. So Sheila Yount, hear me. I am so grateful to you and your very, very good work as the producer of Hidden in Plain Sight, Food Addiction. And you all know I'm Joan Ifland, Dr. Joan Ifland, and I am a doctor of addictive nutrition. Okay, so here's our last segment. This is very sad. It involves young people in the United States. And what has happened is that there's been an increase in deaths. So this is very serious. This is end of life for young people from cirrhosis of the liver, which used to be associated with alcohol. But now, really thanks to researchers like Robert Lustig, we know that high fructose corn syrup is associated with cirrhosis of the liver because 5-year-olds were showing up in Dr. Lustig's pediatrician's office with cirrhosis of the liver. And so it caused a whole new category of disease called non-alcoholic fatty liver, NAFL. And it's just horrible. It's horrible to think of particularly the soda industry being so profit-driven that they would give children a really serious health. If you have fatty liver, your liver's not working. It's not filtering. It's not making enzymes. You're not digesting food. You have toxins in your system. It's a really serious thing to have. And here we have it showing up in children. And so you just see the cruelty, particularly of the soda industry, in marketing sodas to children. Sodas should have a really severe warning label on them. We know it took decades to get those warning labels on to cigarettes, but sodas are worse than cigarettes for one reason, because they are marketed to children and they are given to children. Nobody would give a child a cigarette, but they give children soda all the time. I see it out on the street all the time. And I have to tell you that I have to restrain myself from just running over to the adult who's giving the child that soda, saying, please, 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 no, 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 get that away. No, I don't do that, but I want to. Okay, there's the truth of it. Okay, so now the Times was great to report on these findings. They did mention in the article that cirrhosis of the liver is related to processed foods. So at least they got that out. It can also be related to hepatitis. But by far, when you look at what's going on in our culture, the amount of high fructose corn syrup disappearing into our culture every day per person is so high that it's pretty obvious that that is the problem. So the New York Times, I think, did its best, but in the end of the article, what they suggested is that young people are dying of cirrhosis of the liver because they lose their jobs in economic downturns and they turn to alcohol. Oh, get a grip. Oh, get a grip. So somebody who's been using high fructose corn syrup since birth, because it's in baby formula, and developing cirrhosis of the liver as a result, suddenly as a young person, they're going to die from alcohol? I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think the researcher who collected the data also doesn't think so. And I think, again, the New York Times was trying to reach us, trying to give us, just a suggestion that maybe the conclusion that they were required to write for the article wasn't exactly on target. Maybe this writer really knew that high fructose corn syrup was the problem, but because of the advertising revenues from processed foods, they were not able to say it. But I'm starting to see signs that they're looking for other ways to say it. So here's what the researcher is quoted verbatim. This is a quote at the end of the article. The researcher says, almost every one of these deaths, particularly in the young, is completely preventable. Do you notice he put particularly in the young is completely preventable? A young person just has not been drinking long enough to develop alcohol-related fatty liver. This is non-alcoholic fatty liver. So when he says preventable, I say, oh, yes, 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 these are preventable. But how do you prevent them? When you have the food industry just constantly sending us bad information and getting away with it and no regulation from the government, you have to join a group. You have to join an expert group. And somebody like me, when I'm engaged in the group, I'm engaged in the food addiction reset community 3 hours a day. Video meetups, 2 hours a day, conference call, an hour a day, every day, 7 days a week. And then, of course, I'm out in Facebook for at least another hour and answering emails. So get into an expert group like the Food Addiction Reset Community. And I know Sheila's posting the links down below. So there's so much hope. There's so much hope. We see health coaches being educated. There are now, probably 7 or 8 schools around the country where you can get training as a health coach. We're developing a business model for health coaches so that they can recruit really a great practice. They can recruit a great group of members. The Food Addiction Reset Community is the beta for businesses, for health coaches. So we're working away on that. And before long, you will start to see announcements at Food Addiction Education, And please join our email list so that you can get our email announcements, that you will see announcements of training and business opportunities for food addiction coaches. Yes, this is all preventable if you are in a protected expert group. And so keep trying, keep looking, go to Food Addiction Reset and explore. You will find so many resources there. We want you to keep trying. We're with you. You're not alone in this. I see you and I care about you so much. All right, let's wrap this up. We are almost out of time. Okay, so this week on Food Addiction Reset TV, Hidden in Plain Sight, we learned how to fight back. We learned how to fight back against big food, big pharma, and a lax government. We saw that the food industry failed to exercise adequate quality control over a heart medication, and that medication got out containing a substance that is known to cause cancer. So we're fighting to get a great report from our doctor, the great report being that he or she can take us off of medications. We're fighting for you here. We saw that how the food industry has persuaded parents in Germany that heavily sugared products are healthy, and that delusion unfortunately has resulted in obese children. So great study out of Germany this week. We've reviewed the life-saving ways to push back against a food pusher, or just kind of not really push back, but get out of their way and be polite and be confident. So people are often flummoxed. They are really, they just get shaky when they have to say no to a food pusher. But if you know what to do and you've rehearsed your answers, you will be successful, and you will be successful without shaking up yourself. Yeah. So make it easy on yourself. And then we did correct, I think we corrected a misrepresentation that cirrhosis of the liver deaths in young people are the result of alcohol, not after a lifetime of high fructose corn syrup. So as usual, it's been a lively show, and you were so great to come. I am glad you were here. If you are watching a replay, we are still out at Food Addiction Education at Facebook. We are still available at foodaddictionreset@gmail.com. You can find us at our website, foodaddictionreset.com, and we welcome you. We put our virtual arms around your shoulders. We care about you. Don't give up. There is help. We are cutting edge. No matter how many programs you have tried, there are no programs that use the science to protect you, to train you, to console you and comfort you while you are going through the process of gaining the skills you need to protect yourself against processed food addiction. I am so glad to be here with you, and I'm already looking forward to next week. So have a good week.